While the hosts of Sisters in Arms have taken every precaution to ensure that the content of this program is both current and accurate, errors can occur. The hosts assume no responsibility or liability for any errors or omission in the content of this program.
The information contained in this program is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantee of completeness or accuracy. The opinions of the guests are not necessarily the same as the hosts.
Welcome to Sisters in Arms. I'm Carrie Ann Auclair.
And I'm Renee Gagne, and together we serve as a Second Amendment resource for the communities of Massachusetts.
Today's episode, we have Jim Wallace from GOAL, Gun Owners Action League. He's the director of GOAL, so thank you for coming. This is awesome. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. So,
yeah, but before we do that, can we open up with? We got a fun game. We usually tell our guests what's in store for them, but we didn't do that. This is a surprise. Yeah, this is a complete surprise. We got a little trivia, fun game, and it's called "How Well Do You Know the Hosts?" Okay. Okay, so the rules of the game are pretty simple. You have 12 questions, and you have 1 minute. We're going to try to rifle through all of them.
Did you just say rifle through all of them?
I did.
Hey, no pun intended.
You should have the theme from Jeopardy going right now. So.
And you have to get, let's say 10 right. 10 right to get the prize.
10 out of 12?
Yeah.
I've never done that in my life, not even in
Come
school.
on, these are simple. It's a multiple choice. The answer is either Carrie Ann or Renee. Okay?
Yeah.
You ready? You ready for the challenge?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so ready?
No, but go ahead. Is the world ready? That's what we should ask.
Yeah,
yes.
that's a good point.
Yes.
So which host has a Boy Scout who just earned his Rifle Merit Badge?
I'm going to say Renee.
Ding. There you go. There's one.
Okay.
Can we stop now?
No, you only have to get 9 more. Which host pulled over in a parking lot to save 2 wandering turkeys?
I'm going to say Carrie Ann.
That would be correct.
Oh, I forgot to ask. Are they the
God.
bird kind or just turkeys in general?
The bird kind.
Okay.
All right. Which host takes her dog to the range for board meetings?
I'm going to say Renee.
Yay.
Ding, ding, ding.
The fuzzy one.
Yes.
The fuzzy bubby.
The doodle. Okay, which host is helping Gun Owners Action League plan the 2A Fashion Expo on April 1st at the Cyprian Keys?
That's a twofer.
Yes! You're so good at this, Jim.
All right. Which host serves as a conservation clerk in her town hall?
Oh, it's Carrie Ann. That's an easy
Jim,
one.
these are too easy.
I know.
Yeah.
Hey, we should have
Should have shoe size or something. Yeah?
Which host has children that are junior shooters?
I'd say that's a twofer.
It's a twofer.
All right. Which host loves to shoot skeet?
Let's say Renee.
Ah!
No?
Yeah, no, you're right. I
See?
just can't believe you're
Doing
getting these all
good.
right.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's not going to know that. Which host traded her massage oil for gun oil?
That's kind of a personal question, but did you buy them at the same place?
One of us was a massage therapist before we got into this.
I'll say Carrie Ann.
Nope.
Ooh, wrong.
No, I got
That's
one
okay.
wrong.
You only got one
okay.
wrong.
All right.
Which host sings the national anthem?
Both of you.
Yeah, but someone's really good at it.
Oh, so you didn't say which one was better at it. You just said which one. Okay, so there's an addendum to the question.
Right.
Right. Okay. I'm going to say Renee. Say good. I didn't want to have you know too much.
I know. We didn't want anybody to think it was rigged.
Yeah.
Okay. Which host loves to catch bluefin tuna?
Oh, that's Renee.
Renee!
Ding, ding.
Yeah.
Which
or
host?
does the bluefin catch you? That's
That's right.
you know,
That's right.
some of those fish are pretty big.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. What's that skimming across the water? Oh, that's just Renee.
It's
Don't worry
just
about
Renee. Don't worry, she'll come back. She always does.
Like a boomerang.
All right. Which host loves to ride four-wheelers?
That's easy. Carrie Ann.
Muddy girl.
Muddy girl.
Yeah.
Yep. Now she's got to decide.
Which one?
Well, that
the
was
tie?
which host goes bananas over Muddy Girl rifles?
Yes, that's Carrie Ann, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I get to do my last one then,
Okay.
'cause this is a good one.
Okay.
This is a tricky one.
All right.
Which host has an uncle who lives in Maine that hunts bear and takes people bear hunting for a living?
I'm going to say Carrie Ann. No.
How many did you get? How many did you get?
All right.
I got 10.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yes! You win a prize!
I won a prize.
You win a prize.
Oh, no.
You got to open it. That's the deal.
If there's a scorpion in here, I'm going to be really upset. Hey, look at that.
Look at that. So that is real deer antler.
I'm pretty sure I saw this on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
There you go.
That's funny. Oh, that's
It was
funny.
Jim in the kitchen with a pen.
That's funny. That's funny.
Okay.
All right.
Now, did you pull a deer antler out of the grill of your car? Or no? Okay.
So
No, I didn't.
Renee's cousin makes that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. I got one too. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Is this
I love it.
Yeah, I got to check.
It's a center fire. Did you see? Did you notice?
Yes. Yeah,
Look
yeah.
at that.
Yeah, it's the only pen you need a license for in Massachusetts.
Don't
All right.
worry.
So, I did good? Did I do good?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
great.
did.
You did
See,
great.
you know us well.
Next,
Yeah.
the questions are going to have to get harder.
I didn't want a perfect score because, you know.
You didn't want anybody to think
Yeah.
it was fixed.
Yeah,
Now,
that's funny. All right, so we got some things to talk about.
some things?
Some things.
Some more things other than that? That's
Yeah.
a lot of things.
I know that was fun.
Yeah.
All right, you're up, Renee. Right?
I'm asking the first question.
You
Uh-oh.
are.
So my question's pretty general. Carrie and I talk about GOAL all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're always advocating for people to become members of GOAL. And we notice when we're on gun sites, on Facebook especially, people are having back and forth conversations. And I noticed that a lot of people are really misinformed as to what GOAL does. They think, you know, you're into lawsuits, right? And GOAL's not doing that. And why
Personally
aren't
or
they-
with GOAL?
With GOAL.
Okay, all right.
Right?
All right.
And from what I understand, that is not at all what GOAL does.
No.
So I wanted you just to clear
Yeah.
the air on that.
Well, you know, let's back up a little bit. Gun Owners Action League was actually established in 1974, and back then there was a ballot question, question 5, that would have banned handguns in Massachusetts, period. And of course, that was way before the internet, cell phones. So a group of people got together and they worked really hard, traveled the state everywhere to talk to people, and eventually we won the ballot fight.
Awesome.
And I was in grade school at the time, so you know. But they said at the time they could see where Massachusetts was headed, and they needed a full-time organization to protect the Second Amendment civil rights. So it's almost been 50 years now that Gun Owners Action League has been
Wow.
in place. I've been with GOAL almost 21 years now, and it's an interesting story how I got there. Maybe we'll save that for another episode, but it's pretty wild. So one of the things that GOAL doesn't do is litigation, which is lawsuits. We will certainly get involved in something that's been filed. We will fund things that's been filed. But what we're looking for when we do even that is to find a case that has broad implications. It's not just an individual trying to get their license back. We want broad implication cases that are going to help a huge number of people, not just one or two people, because you can literally go bankrupt. I mean, if you look
Oh my
at
God, yeah.
in 1998 when they passed the huge Gun Control Act, we had 1.5 million licensed gun owners. Within 3 years, that number was down to 220,000. And you can imagine the calls we were getting. And we told people, it's financially impossible to help
Right.
all of you. And that's when the board decided if we're going to get involved, it has to be something with broad implications. Now, there is an organization we work with called COM2A, Commonwealth Second Amendment. They are the litigation group.
Right.
And we work very closely with them. Sometimes we help them with funding, sometimes we help them with just public outreach. And they fill an important void. What we do at GOAL is everything else.
Right.
And from outreach to training to advocacy in the State House to public speaking, because And I used this after the famous Bruin case last summer, when a lot of people said, oh, the Supreme Court said it's a civil right, the fight's done. Nope, fight just began.
Right, right.
Because if you look at civil rights fights throughout the history of the United States, let's use Brown v. Board of Education, right? Tremendous court decision. Was it over? No. Because the first part is getting the courts to recognize your civil rights. Perhaps the hardest part and the longest part is social acceptance. And every group that's had to fight for civil rights throughout U.S. history has found that to be the bigger fight. So that's where GOAL is. We try to get in every single avenue we possibly can, because it's not just a matter of winning a court case. You have to win over everyone else in the social acceptance, which in our state house is going to be amazingly tough.
Right.
But also the general public, because the Second Amendment, historically, being treated as a civil right is brand new.
Right.
And I've been using that term for 20 years. I hate the term gun rights.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Right.
They're civil rights. They're actually inalienable rights, but ask somebody what that means these days, they don't even know.
Right.
So you have to use terms that people understand. Civil rights.
Right.
And the Second Amendment as a civil right, even just 5 years ago, if you told that to somebody, they'd get mad. No, it's not a civil right, it's a privilege. Well, guess what, folks? Yeah, just like all these other civil rights fights, I'm not going to compare our fight to what minorities and other people went through, but there are similarities. And we're going through the same processes. And it's not just a one-day court battle that's going to win it. It's going to take decades to really overcome things. And, we have found that with everything throughout U.S. history. Matter of fact, the First Amendment, if you actually go back through the litigation stuff on the First Amendment before the Supreme Court, it was almost 50 years before they narrowed us down to where we are now. Because unlike Bruin was probably one of the broadest decisions I ever saw.
Jim, can you just talk about Bruin? Because we talk about it because we know, but for
Sure.
our listeners, they might not know what Bruin
Yeah, Bruin was a United States Supreme Court case that was finally decided last summer. And it came out of New York. And New York gun laws were they're worse than Massachusetts gun laws.
Awful.
And as I understand the premise of it, it came from anyone who lived in New York City that had a license couldn't carry outside the city.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
Was it outside the home too?
No, it was just outside the city. Outside the city. So, and there were some other things that were involved as well. And eventually it went to court, and it's a long process to get to the Supreme Court. Maybe sometimes take 2 years. Now, the problem with the Supreme Court too is that they can choose not
I was
to
just
hear
going
your
to say that
case.
you can put all this money and effort into it,
You
and
can
all of a
spend $1
sudden
million
shut it down.
trying to get a case to the Supreme Court, and they can just say, we're not ready to take that on, which is what happened with GOAL when we sued the state on the 2016 so-called assault weapon stuff, where the Attorney General overnight, literally via press conference, reinterpreted 18 years of law. And the NRA and GOAL spent a ton of money and resources trying to get that to the Supreme Court, and that court at that time, no, we don't want to hear it. And a lot of people and members don't understand, what do you mean they wouldn't hear it? That's their option. Yeah. So the Bruin case was an historic case because it declared the Second Amendment as not being a second-class civil right.
Right.
That's the beginning. And I told everybody when the case came down, I said, this is now just the beginning of the fight. You think you were in a fight before? You look at what happened in California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts. The 5 or 6 states that Bruin really affected literally went on a tantrum. And I told the press after I started seeing it, and I was surprised I didn't get any backlash, but I didn't. I said, I have never seen so many people that claim to support civil rights that ran to the microphone to emulate Governor Wallace of Alabama after Brown v. Board of Education. And that's exactly what they did. Not my state. You will not tell me what my state can do or will do or has to do. They went on a full-blown tantrum. We expected that. Our members didn't. Our members thought it was over, and we knew better because we've been doing this for so long. Mm-hmm. So it's like, just calm down, settle down, and now the work begins in earnest. So there's a lot of cases around firearms and the Second Amendment. I shouldn't say a lot, a number of cases that after Bruin was decided, got sent back down to the lower federal courts to be reheard in light of the Second Amendment being a civil right. So it's going to be very interesting. Next 4 or 5 years is going to be instrumental in how this civil right fight moves forward.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So with all that said, would you say it's accurate to say that you kind of kibosh bills before they become law? You go in there and you talk to the legislators and kind of get them to understand how bad some of these bills are, and so they don't even make it to law.
Yeah. I would say, you know, in one of the hats that I wear, the lobbyist hat, 90% of that job is education because they don't know. You can't know. If you're a state rep, you are literally dealing with everything from naming the state cookie to nursing, right?
Right.
Everything involved in the state. I mean, there's usually an average of 6,000 to 7,000 pieces of legislation.
Right.
And Mike Harris, who now works for us, was a state aide, legislative aide in the state, 10 years. And he said the lobbyists were our most important resources.
Right.
Because, you know, maybe you're an automotive lobbyist or, you know, whatever, you're a nurse lobbyist. Who am I going to go to even find out what this stuff means? And they'll call us and say, hey, you know, what's going on? 2014, we worked very hard with the legislature after the Newtown massacre to go through the laws. And the irony was, after that happened and we knew they were going to do that, there was a senator who stopped me in the hall and said, hey, Jim, could you guys come in and give us a rundown on what we have for laws? And I snickered and he goes, what's the matter? And I said, I think it's funny you want us to come in and tell you what you have for laws. Right. But I said, yeah, we can do that, but it's going to take like 8 hours. And he's like, oh no, 20 minutes. And I said, I can't even cover the definition section in 20 minutes, Senator.
So maybe in Maine, you could do it in 20.
Yeah. So that brings me to my other question is, because a lot of people ask, what's the difference between being a lobbyist and advocating for our civil rights?
Well, I mean, being a lobbyist, you know, I'm a full-time lobbyist. That's my profession, as well as all the other hats I wear for GOAL, public speaker and administrator and all this kind of stuff. You know, it's one of those things that's full-time. Advocates or activists, you know, are for the most part volunteers, and they're so important because pick a subject. If there's no faces behind that lobbyist, you're a paper tiger. So it's so important to have the advocates and the activists behind you, so that when things are happening, you're not just one person walking the halls and trying to take care of that. If you've ever been in the State House when there have been rallies and stuff for groups, it can get pretty insane. You know,
I hate that term power in numbers, but I really think it matters.
It's true. Well, I mean, think of voting, right? Power in numbers.
Right.
Just, I'm in a nursing union, and when all of our members get together and we have a voice together, administration listens. If it was one nurse with a voice, it wouldn't be the same. So same thing.
Yeah, you gotta back each other up.
Yeah, that nurse would have to be an opera singer, right?
Jim, does GOAL offer an advocacy class? I know there's a lot of education that GOAL offers.
Yeah, we do a lot of education. We actually have a full-time trainer for firearm safety programs. You name it, we cover it. We've actually developed courses that are now accepted to some extent across the country, or others are emulating. Nice. One of the other things our trainer does is most popular class is the gun law class. And it's about 3.5 to 4 hours. And we don't even cover the criminal laws, which are a whole nother 3 to 4 hours. And that's one of our most popular. And now that COVID is over, quote, in air quotes, we are now getting back to our advocacy training. And what we do is we bring people in, we give them a rundown of how the legislature works, how a bill becomes law or doesn't become law, and what the process is, the best ways to advocate, the best ways to communicate. Sometimes dealing with the media, rule number 1 is shut up. So there's a lot of education. Even the clubs, we try to, every year we have a workshop for clubs on how to administrate a club, how to deal with the public, how to deal with the media, and it's a lot of outreach. So, you know, going back to lawsuits, to some extent our our folks, our community, have been spoiled, and they think, oh, just leave me alone and file a lawsuit. It's not the way it works. It's not the way it works. Nobody's ever won a civil rights fight by sitting at home and just filing a lawsuit. It's never happened in the history. I don't think it's ever going to happen in the history of the United States. So it's so important to do all this other work that's outreach work.
Right.
Look at you two, how far you've come. It's amazing. And so far, you're still not a threat to mortal man, but you're getting there. So, you know, sometimes you scare us, but that's all right. That's all right. You know, there's always the joke that, you know, history will tell us, guys, if we were smart, to teach the ladies how to shoot better, but, you know, we'll figure it out as we go. That's okay.
So Carrie, being the director, the state director for the DC project, you have dozens and dozens of women that are looking to advocate. So would that be something that we would be able to work together?
Sure.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
us where you need us, where, because we together as a powerful voice.
Yeah, we've even talked about having
Right.
a field trip to the State House
Yep,
this
we're
spring.
going to do a field trip to the State House.
And that's what it's all about, because educating our women is great too, because the more education you have, the more apt you are to use your voice, right? Because it can be a little overwhelming. That State House is overwhelming.
Well, I think that too, and the fact that when people hear advocate, they get scared. When they hear delegate, they get scared. So delegate being a member for the DC project, they don't understand the process, and they don't understand that everybody has their superpower, and if your superpower is showing up in Teal, then show up in Teal. You know, if your superpower is emailing and calling your legislator, then do that too, you know?
Hey, the older I get, the less I want to be in charge, so, you know. But it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And whatever the psychology is, sometimes it's very difficult for people to start the process. They're intimidated by legislators and senators and, you know, congresspeople and governors. And I understand it. I mean, when I first started doing this 25 years ago, you know, you put me in front of 10 people and I'd be
Right.
you know, and of course now you know me and how shy I am in the microphone. So, you know, it's, you know, my wife always says, God help the person who gives my husband a microphone. But, you know, I think the biggest crowd now I think I've spoken to is 5,000.
Wow.
So, and I had a blast, you know.
Yeah,
but
you
know,
add like humor to it too,
That's-
and you don't. It's
you know.
not boring. People are engaged in it.
Yeah.
It's not like
You
so.
know, there's something that I decided years ago as a speaker is, or even just being on TV or something, anybody can make somebody mad.
Right.
Anybody can scare you. But if you get them laughing a little bit, they actually they remember.
Yeah, they do.
They retain what you're saying.
And they
because
want to
they're-
come back and
because,
see you
yeah,
again.
because they're awake.
So
Right.
You know, and it's to me it's fun. One of the things I can't do is a written speech.
no, I learned my lesson on that one.
Speeches.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'll make bullet points
Yeah.
just to make sure I'm, you know, because written speech, if it's failing, you're done.
Yeah.
So what I try to do, especially in a big crowd, is try to find somebody, a few people who are starting to react the way I want, and then you build on it. And if it's not working, you can shift
Yes.
because it's not written in stone.
Right.
You know, and if you look at some of the great orators in the past, Barack Obama could read a speech
Oh my God.
like nobody,
Right.
but off the cuff, he was useless.
Right.
So it's talents. It's all what your talent is, what you said,
Your
what
superpower.
your superpower is. So it's very important, and I teach this actually at
Right.
college. There's an advocacy class that I help teach.
Oh, nice.
Well, once a year I usually speak to them, and it's just that. Don't try to be somebody you're not,
Yeah.
but also work to get over the intimidation. Because once you get past that veil,
Right.
you'll find out it's totally different.
And I think too is if people, you know, they want to stick in their own little superpower, their own comfort zone. Sometimes getting out of that comfort zone is good, and having people to help you get there, like GOAL and like the DC project. I think those things are important.
Well, it's one of the things we did in an advocacy workshop last year was, other than just teaching you, we actually set up a mock hearing.
Yes.
So you were
we did
testifying
that
in front
last
of
time.
us.
It was great.
And it was very interesting to see, you know, they were so positive of themselves until they sat across the table. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, you
Yeah.
know. And I've seen that with people too that are great speakers, until you put them in front of a camera.
Oh, yeah.
And they freeze, you know, and it's like, oh, I'm so,
Right.
you know, it's like me, I'm intimidated. I'm afraid. Which hand should I move?
Yeah, look at you. That's your scary face. Look at that.
So but you have to be comfortable with what you're doing.
Right.
And if you're not, try to get some training.
Right.
And if it still doesn't work, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because there's other things you can do.
And it's okay.
And you have a training course coming up, and it's sold out.
Yes. Yeah,
It's sold out.
Yeah.
You have a part that a goal. So John's doing law.
In the morning,
and
we'll
then-
have the gun law class.
Right.
And then in the afternoon, we'll have the advocacy class. And I believe my friend Dee Dee's going to actually come and talk about dealing with the media too. So
I think that's awesome.
So that should be fun.
Yeah.
We used to do, pre-COVID, we used to do them pretty much every year, sometimes twice a year, big numbers. But of course, COVID messed up everything. But
Yep.
But hopefully we're back to whatever normal is now.
Right.
And we're rocking and rolling.
Right.
The interesting thing about post-COVID is trying to get the legislature to recognize that it's over.
Oh my gosh! Because when we went, nobody was there.
Nobody.
I was
it's
so
a ghost town.
bummed out because
It's a ghost town. They're so used to working remotely now. Even you walk around the State House on a weekday, a good number of the offices are locked.
Yeah.
There's not even a staffer in there.
Right.
Well, even the Capitol, when we went on
there
our
was
trip
like
in
a lot of
September.
Zooms. But we got 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and I wanted to I know we're probably going to run out of time, but I know that you guys are working on some really amazing bills, and you are working with them, and I don't think people understand when you can actually create a bill, and GOAL has done a lot. So can you quickly just kind of touch on that and explain?
Yeah, we've, I don't even know how many bills we filed this year, maybe 30, close to 30. So we actually have to draft the language.
Okay.
And then get it to a legislator who will file it for us.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, over the years, when I first started, when I drafted a bill, it had to be perfect. It made sure it said everything. And
Right.
And now I've been doing this so long, I've never seen a bill ever pass the way it was filed. I don't care if you're naming the state lizard. By the time the State House done with it, that bill will be 10 pages long.
Right.
So it's what I do now is, as long as you kind of rough it out and give them an idea of what you're trying to do, that's it. Because it's funny, because we'll publish what we drafted, and you should have said this, and you should have said, Hank, it's fine, fine. Don't worry about it. We know what's going on, but it's interesting. For somebody like me, never went to college. I spent 3 years in the Army, never had any official training.
Yeah, but it's your passion.
When you think about it,
That's
I've actually drafted and passed more stuff into law than most legislators will ever.
Right.
I
I think it's great, and I think that's,
interesting.
I'm definitely going to be adding this to our YouTube channel underneath this show of all the different bills that you guys have done, because I think it's so important.
Yeah. And people should know too, anybody can file a bill, because if you draft something or even have an idea, if you go to your legislator, they have to file it for you.
Oh,
They have to.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't mean they have to push for it. And behind the scenes, they can go, I had to file this, but can you just, but they have to do that. So if you go to your legislator, and could be a nursing, could be about four-wheeling,
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, because you guys do other stuff too, like conservation efforts, and that's a big
Domestic
part of
violence
it. Domestic
stuff.
violence
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
But we can't thank you enough, because I think it's very, very important to have the public understand what you guys do on a regular basis. So.
Yeah.
Do we have 1 minute?
I don't know. Do we have 1 minute? 2 minutes?
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But I think
Well,
it's really important.
More trivia,
that,
more trivia.
No, but I wanted this.
Oh,
Is funny.
this
We're
is
talking about superpowers, right?
Yes.
Like, she is amazing
Oh,
with
my God.
graphics and computer stuff. That's not my strong point, right? So John Green.
You have a panic attack when you pick up your cell phone.
I
Come
can't.
on.
I can't. It's awful. So,
yeah.
so Carrie's so good. So John Green and I were emailing back and forth about something, and he's such a great resource. And I tell everybody, if you join GOAL, you will have the best resources in the state. So he answers my email and he says, "Excellent. I am teaching an IRSO class down at the Rod and Gun Club in New Bedford this weekend." So I'm not going to bother him, right? So I say to Carrie, "What the hell does this mean? Is this like code for something?"
That's John's voice text.
Yeah,
Yes.
listen
Yes.
to what it means. She goes, "He's teaching an RSO class." I
Yeah.
go, "How did you don't get that in there. She goes, it's talk text. So that is her superpower.
We have contests at the office.
That's so funny.
We used to have a member years ago, Kenny Starbird, I think was his name. He would write us handwritten letters.
Yeah.
All capitals, no spaces, no punctuation.
Right.
And it was like lunchtime. Okay, let's get the puzzle book out and figure out what Kenny's trying to tell us.
So we're running out of time, but we want to thank you so much for
Sure.
joining us. Thank you very much for joining Sisters in Arms. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to our email, sistersinarms2022@gmail.com. Until next time,
Be safe.
stay vigilant. Thank you, Jim. You're awesome.
This was terrible.